You've heard them before. For simple words, soft, casual, almost harmless. But hidden inside them is a quiet warning most men completely miss. Because when a woman says these words, she's not just speaking. She's testing. She's measuring. She's quietly deciding whether you're a man she can respect or a man she can easily play. And the strange part is, the moment these words leave her lips, the outcome of your connection is already beginning to shift. Not because of what she said, but because of how you respond. Most men react emotionally. They chase. They explain. They try to prove themselves. And in that exact moment, attraction quietly dies. But a man who understands female psychology hears something very different. He hears the signal beneath the words. He sees the test behind the smile. And he knows exactly what to do. Welcome back to Female Code Unlocked, where we explore the hidden psychology behind attraction, emotions, and the signals women send that most men never notice. If you want to understand the deeper patterns of female behavior and master the emotional intelligence most men lack, make sure you subscribe and join this journey of decoding the female mind. Because tonight, we're going deeper than surface-level advice. Tonight, you're going to learn the 4 words women often say right before they start playing games, and more importantly, exactly how a calm, emotionally intelligent man responds in a way that completely shifts the power dynamic. Let's start with the first phrase. I'm just tired. Now on the surface, these words sound innocent. Maybe she had a long day. Maybe work was stressful. Maybe she really is tired. But here's the psychological layer most men miss. When a woman says this during moments where emotional connection should be building, when conversations start getting meaningful, when plans are forming, when things are moving toward deeper interest, I'm tired often becomes a subtle emotional exit. It's not always about sleep. It's about distance. Picture this. You've been texting her all evening. The conversation starts warm. She's laughing. She's engaged. She's asking questions. It feels like momentum is building. Then suddenly, the energy changes. Her responses get shorter. The enthusiasm fades. And finally, she sends the message, I'm just tired. Most men panic right here. They instantly start overcompensating. Did I say something wrong? Are you okay? Did I bother you? Or worse, they begin chasing her attention harder. Come on, don't go yet. Just 5 more minutes. Tell me what's wrong. And in that moment, the emotional frame completely collapses. Because now you've shifted from being the man she was curious about into someone seeking approval. But here's what a calm, self-aware man understands. When a woman says, I'm tired, she's often watching your reaction more than expecting a specific response. She's observing your emotional stability. Do you panic when attention disappears? Do you chase when energy pulls away? Or do you remain grounded, unbothered, and confident in your own presence? The man who keeps attraction alive does something very simple. He doesn't argue with her words. He doesn't interrogate her emotions. He doesn't chase her attention. Instead, he respects the space without losing his composure. Something simple like, sounds like you've had a long day. Get some rest. No pressure. No insecurity. No emotional chasing. And here's the fascinating part of female psychology. When a man responds like this, it often creates the opposite effect. Instead of disappearing, she becomes curious again. Because emotional calmness is rare. Most men react. Very few remain centered. And when a woman meets a man who doesn't panic when the energy shifts, something subtle happens inside her mind. The dynamic changes. Now she's the one wondering. Now she's the one thinking. Now she's the one leaning back in. But the next 4 words women say before they start playing games are even more deceptive. Because they sound like honesty, when in reality they're often the beginning of emotional confusion. And if you respond the wrong way to this one, you unknowingly walk straight into the trap. There's another phrase women often say, and when you hear it, it feels honest, transparent, almost respectful. But psychologically, it can mean something very different beneath the surface. The 4 words are simple. I'm not ready yet. At first glance, these words feel reasonable, mature even. They suggest she's being emotionally responsible. that she's protecting both of you from moving too fast. And sometimes, that's exactly what it means. But in many real-life situations, this phrase isn't about readiness. It's about emotional positioning. Because when a woman says, "I'm not ready yet," she's often creating a space where she keeps your attention without fully committing her interest. Think about how this usually happens. You've been seeing each other for a while. The chemistry is there. The conversations feel deep. The eye contact lingers longer than normal. Maybe she calls you late at night just to talk. Maybe she shares personal stories about her life, her childhood, her dreams. She opens emotional doors that make you feel special, like you're slowly becoming someone important in her world. But the moment the connection begins moving toward clarity, when the relationship needs direction, she pauses everything with those 4 words. "I'm not ready yet." And suddenly, the dynamic shifts. You're emotionally invested, but the path forward becomes blurry. Now here's where most men make the mistake that quietly destroys their leverage. They start waiting. They tell themselves she just needs time. They keep giving attention, effort, emotional energy, hoping eventually she'll be ready. But here's the darker psychological truth. When a woman senses a man will wait indefinitely, attraction slowly fades. Not because she's cruel, but because emotional certainty removes mystery. And mystery is a powerful driver of attraction. When she knows you're already fully available, fully invested, and not going anywhere, the emotional tension disappears. Now compare that to how a grounded man responds. He doesn't challenge her feelings. He doesn't argue with her timeline. But he also doesn't pause his life waiting for clarity. Instead, he calmly acknowledges her words and keeps moving forward with his own life. Something like, "I understand. Take your time." Short, respectful, confident. But then something important happens. He doesn't linger in emotional limbo. He doesn't keep chasing deeper conversations every night. He pulls his energy back slightly, not as a punishment, but as self-respect. Because a man who values himself understands something powerful. Attention is a currency, and when it's given too freely without commitment, it loses its value. Now suddenly, the emotional balance changes again. The woman who once felt comfortable keeping you in a gray area begins to notice the difference. Your texts become less frequent. Your attention becomes more selective. Your energy no longer revolves around her availability. And something fascinating begins to happen. Curiosity returns. Because attraction often grows strongest in the presence of uncertainty. She begins wondering if she misjudged you. She starts questioning whether she might lose the connection she thought would always be there. And in many cases, that's when interest quietly reappears. Not because you manipulated anything, but because emotional independence is magnetic. A man who can walk forward with or without her approval becomes far more intriguing than the one waiting for permission to matter. But the next 4 words women say before they start playing games are even more dangerous. Because they sound like a compliment. They feel warm, reassuring, even flattering. But hidden inside them is one of the most common psychological traps men fall into. And if you miss the meaning behind these 4 words, you might spend months believing you're special, while slowly becoming her emotional backup plan. The next 4 words feel good when you hear them. In fact, they might even make your chest rise a little with pride. Because when she says them, it sounds like admiration, respect, connection. The words are simple. "You're such a good guy." Now most men hear this and instantly assume they're winning. They think it means she sees their value, their kindness, their effort. They believe it's the foundation of something deeper about to grow. But psychologically, this phrase often carries a completely different meaning beneath the surface. Because attraction and appreciation are not the same emotion. And many men confuse the two. Picture the moment. You've been supportive. You listen to her problems. You show patience. You treat her with respect. You're consistent, reliable, emotionally available. You become the man who answers the phone when she's stressed. The man who reassures her when life feels chaotic. The man who always shows up. Then one evening during a conversation, she says it. "You're such a good guy." And she says it warmly, maybe even with a soft smile. but something about the energy feels slightly different. Less tension, less spark. Almost like she's describing a friend, not a man she's deeply drawn toward. Because in many cases, this phrase signals emotional comfort without romantic desire. You've become safe, predictable, reliable, but not mysterious, not challenging, not the man who creates emotional tension. And attraction lives inside tension, not inside certainty. When a woman says, "You're such a good guy," she's often acknowledging your character, while subconsciously placing you into a non-romantic category. It's the polite boundary many women use when they appreciate you, but don't feel the pull of attraction. Now here's where most men accidentally trap themselves. They respond by becoming even nicer, more supportive, more available. They think if they just prove their kindness enough, she'll eventually realize they're the right choice. But this usually creates the opposite effect, because excessive approval removes polarity. And polarity is the electricity that creates attraction. A man who understands emotional dynamics does something different. He doesn't get defensive. He doesn't argue. And he definitely doesn't double down on trying to prove himself. Instead, he shifts the energy. If she says, "You're such a good guy," he might respond playfully, "Careful, you're starting to make me sound boring." Or with a calm smile, he might say, "I hope I'm a little more interesting than that." What he's doing in that moment is subtle but powerful. He refuses to accept the passive role. He gently pushes the interaction back into a space where tension and personality exist. Because attraction grows where personality lives, not where approval dominates. And something interesting happens when a man responds this way. She begins to see a different layer of him. Confidence. Playfulness. A man who isn't trying to earn her validation. And suddenly the category she placed him in begins to blur. But the final 4 words women say before they start playing games are the most dangerous of all. Because these words create hope. They keep you emotionally invested. They make you believe something is still possible, even when her actions are quietly saying the opposite. And the way you respond to these final 4 words determines whether you stay trapped in emotional confusion or walk away with your power completely intact. The final 4 words are the ones that confuse men the most. Because when you hear them, they sound like possibility, hope, a door that hasn't fully closed. The words are simple. Maybe someday, who knows? And when she says them, she often delivers them softly, almost thoughtfully, as if the future is still open, as if timing is the only thing standing between you and something real. But psychologically, these words often serve a very different purpose. They keep you emotionally close, without giving you emotional certainty, because maybe someday creates the illusion of potential. And potential is powerful. It keeps you waiting. It keeps you imagining. It keeps you emotionally invested in a future that may never actually arrive. Picture the situation. You've spent weeks or even months talking to her. There were moments of chemistry, moments of connection, moments where it felt like something real might grow. But when the conversation reaches the point where clarity is needed, she gently pulls away. You ask where things are going, and instead of a clear answer, she gives you those 4 words. Maybe someday, who knows? Now your mind fills in the gaps. Maybe she just needs time. Maybe circumstances aren't right yet. Maybe if you stay patient, supportive, understanding, things will eventually change. And this is exactly how emotional limbo begins. Because those words keep the door slightly open, just enough to stop you from walking away. But here's the truth confident men quietly understand. When someone truly wants you in their life, uncertainty rarely lasts long. Interest creates effort. Attraction creates momentum. And clarity appears naturally when both people feel the same pull. A man who understands his value doesn't build his emotional world around, maybe someday. He listens carefully to the difference between words and behavior. If her actions show distance, he believes the actions. If her interest fades, he doesn't chase fading energy. Instead, he does something that most men struggle to do. He accepts the message beneath the words. And he calmly moves forward. No bitterness, no anger, no dramatic speeches. Just quiet self-respect. Something simple like, maybe, but I don't wait around for someday. Not aggressive, Not emotional, just honest. And in that moment, something powerful happens. You step out of the role of the man hoping for her approval and back into the role of a man who chooses his own direction. Because the truth most people never say out loud is this: a woman who is genuinely intrigued by you rarely wants to risk losing you. But a woman who believes you'll always stay available has no urgency to decide. When you stop orbiting around someone's uncertainty, you instantly become more valuable than when you are waiting for their attention. And sometimes, that's the moment she finally sees you differently. Not as an option, but as a man who can walk away. Now here's the deeper lesson behind everything you've heard tonight. The words women say aren't always the real message. The real message lives inside the emotional dynamics, inside the energy, inside how you respond when things become uncertain. Because the men women respect most aren't the ones who chase clarity. They're the ones who remain calm, confident, and self-directed even when clarity disappears. And when you learn to recognize these subtle psychological signals, something changes. You stop reacting emotionally. You start observing patterns. And suddenly, the games lose their power over you. If this opened your eyes to the hidden psychology behind attraction, make sure you subscribe to Female Code Unlocked for more deep insights into female behavior, emotional intelligence, and the silent signals that shape modern relationships. Because once you truly understand the code, you stop guessing, and you start seeing everything clearly.